Hello. Today in this video we are going to talk about the comparison of knowledge building pedagogy and dialogic teaching. Knowledge building is a complex system that encourages students to work independently or alongside the teacher with the goal of increasing the knowledge and understanding of the class as a whole. Unlike many pedagogical practices, this style of teaching discourages working for individual gain. Students ask questions and do research for the purpose of furthering community knowledge. This style of teaching is supported by a computer-supported intentional learning environment, or a CSILE, known as the Knowledge Forum. This online learning environment was designed by the people that pioneered knowledge-building pedagogy. Knowledge Forum is a central piece of the knowledge-building pedagogy as it gives students and teachers an online space to communicate about ideas, ask questions, organize their thoughts, and find new lines of inquiry. This form of pedagogy is not well known here in the States due to the fact that it is completely inquiry-based rather than standards-based. Students begin with a main topic and follow the line of inquiry wherever it leads. The research I conducted showed that these inquiries usually covered all grade level standards and more, but the standards that they covered were different each time. The goal of my research was to discover whether knowledge building and dialogic teaching were compatible forms of pedagogy. To do this, I compared trends and practices found in my research on knowledge building pedagogy to Robin Alexander's 5 Characteristics of Dialogic Teaching, found in the 2006 edition of her book Towards Dialogic Teaching. The image you will be seeing is a visual representation of how these two types of teaching have compatible components. At the top, you will see 5 characteristics of dialogic teaching as laid out by Alexander. At the bottom, you will see some of the principles and elements of knowledge building found in my research that align with Alexander's 5 characteristics. The double-sided arrow between these two styles of teaching shows that this process can go either way, emphasizing the compatibility of the two styles. The first of the components that we will be looking at is cumulative. Alexander described cumulative as when teachers and children build on their own and each other's ideas and chain them into coherent lines of thinking and inquiry. This characteristic appeared in 3 ways throughout my research. The first was idea-centered teaching. This is when the students are given a topic or idea and they run with it. Students will break down the main idea into subgroups and work together to learn as much as they can about the overall topic through research, experiments, asking questions, and constantly building on previous ideas. The next connection is improvable ideas. This characteristic represents the mindset behind knowledge-building pedagogy. Students and teachers who hold this mindset believe that you can always learn more about an idea and that understanding is a continuous process, not an end destination. The last connection found in this category is the idea of knowledge creation and advancement. When you put idea-centered teaching together with improvable ideas, you have a group of students who work together to build off of one another's ideas and understand that there is always space for someone else to run with your idea. Students create knowledge as a class and build onto it to continue on the path of understanding. The next category we will look at is collective. Alexander defined collective as when teachers and children address learning tasks together, whether as a group or as a class, rather than in isolation. In this area, I also found 3 connections between dialogic teaching and knowledge building. The first is rotating leadership. In knowledge building classrooms, students often work independently or in small groups on and off throughout the inquiry process. Within these shifting groups, leaders will temporarily arise as needed. If a student poses a question to the class that is more difficult to answer, 1 or 2 students will take the lead, asking more clarifying questions, pulling together information from other topics and inquiries, and helping the class reach a point of comprehension. When the class hits another roadblock, though, the students that step up are likely to be different. The class understands that the goal is successful understanding for the whole community, so students will take turns stepping up when it is beneficial for the group. Rotating leadership also plays into our next connection, which is collective responsibility. This means that each individual student has the responsibility to contribute to the overall knowledge of the group. Individual goals do not exist because each student does what is needed to further group understanding. In this process, students learn to be responsible, depend on their peers, hone in on their strengths, and learn new skills as needed. The last connection for this category is also very similar. In all knowledge-building classrooms, there are community goals. While each student participates in many different activities, the community goal is to advance the topic of inquiry. All the research done and questions asked by students in groups or individually are focused on the goal that all of them share. The next characteristic we will look at is purposeful, which is described as teachers planning and facilitating dialogic teaching with particular educational goals in mind. Due to the form in which primary research is conducted and presented, this characteristic is harder to make connections to because while reading we mainly see the results, not what goes on in the background to make the results happen. However, I was able to find one consistent connection. In knowledge-building classrooms, the teacher is a facilitator. There is very little direct instruction in this type of classroom, if any. Instead of teaching lessons on topics students need to know, teachers in knowledge-building classrooms have to plan inquiry topics that have strong potential for research, hypothesizing, and experimenting. They also have to create a classroom environment that enables students to shift between group work and independent work as needed or desired. Supportive is the next characteristic of dialogic teaching we will discuss because it shares similarities with purposeful teaching. Alexander described a supportive environment as one where children articulate their ideas freely, without fear of embarrassment over wrong answers, and they help each other to teach to common understanding. As teachers in knowledge-building classrooms are being purposeful about their classroom environment, they must keep in mind the demands that knowledge building has on their students. A knowledge-building approach requires that students are comfortable with voicing their thoughts, regardless if they are correct. Students also need to be supportive of one another as they discover new concepts and ideas. In knowledge building, this is known as idea diversity. Knowledge building thrives on discovering the vast array of perspectives and understandings present in classrooms and all around the world. But in order for that to successfully take place, students have to feel supported by their teachers and peers in the classroom. The final characteristic we will look at is reciprocal. In her book, Alexander described reciprocal as when teachers and children listen to each other and share ideas and consider alternative viewpoints. This is another component that is slightly harder to find because the focus of primary research is on the students rather than the teacher. The connection I found was the mindset of a teacher as a co-learner. In knowledge-building classrooms, teachers facilitate discussions and probe students for ideas. Due to the unpredictable nature of student inquiry, it is not uncommon for teachers to be asked questions they do not know the answer to. In these instances, teachers learn alongside their students, and when the class hits a roadblock, it is generally the students that take the lead and connect the dots to find the answer, not the teacher. This mindset gives students the chance to thrive in their inquiry without interference and prepares them for working without supervision or detailed instruction in careers later in life. So as you can see, while some connections between the two forms of pedagogy are stronger than others, these two styles of teaching are compatible with one another. If we flip the image over, the connections do not fall apart. All of the similarities between the teaching styles are still there. One can work in the other classroom, and the other pedagogy can work in another classroom. I hope this visualization helps you to better understand the connections between dialogic teaching and knowledge-building pedagogy. The next step I will be taking in the next few weeks will be to put together a few resources for you to use as you continue to learn more about the style of teaching and potentially try to implement it in your own classroom. Thank you for watching.